The Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation officially came to order for a long-awaited oversight hearing on the Federal Communications Commission. Lawmakers emphasized that the FCC plays a vital role in the daily lives of Americans, overseeing everything from television and radio broadcasting to mobile phones, satellite communications, and internet connectivity. The Commission sits at the center of the technologies that power the U.S. economy, support national security, and project American leadership around the world. Committee leaders welcomed FCC Chairman Brendan Carr, along with Commissioners Trusty and Gomez, noting that this marks the first FCC oversight hearing held by the committee since 2020. Members reflected on how much has changed since that last hearing, pointing to the rapid pace of technological innovation. Over the past year alone, lawmakers highlighted major developments, including the nationwide rollout of 5G, early groundwork for 6G, significant growth in the satellite industry.
Good morning. The Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation will come to order. Welcome to today's hearing, Oversight on the Federal Communications Commission. The FCC plays a critical role in the lives of everyday Americans. From TV and radio broadcasting to cellular and satellite communications and internet connectivity. The Commission sits at the center of the services and technologies that power Americans' daily lives, that project American leadership and influence across the globe, and that form the backbone of our national economy. In other words, the Commission's work is kind of a big deal. So I am pleased that we are joined today by our witnesses, Chairman Carr and Commissioners Trusty and Gomez, for this important hearing, and especially pleased that they agreed to be here and that this is the first FCC oversight hearing this committee has held since 2020. I believe Commissioner Trusty was sitting right here staffing then Chairman Wicker at that hearing. And so, Commissioner, it's nice to see you have moved 30 feet to the other side of the dais. We have a lot of important ground to cover today. The pace of change in just the last year, let alone since the last FCC oversight hearing by this committee, has been astounding. We've seen the deployment of 5G and early groundwork for 6G. Major advancements in the satellite industry, particularly the growth of low Earth orbit, high-speed internet, AI, and seismic shifts across the media landscape. And we've seen the enactment of President Trump's Working Families Tax Cut Act, which not only reinstated spectrum auction authority for the FCC for the next decade, but contained the largest single spectrum pipeline, 800 megahertz, ever enacted into law. This will raise billions of dollars for the taxpayer. It will stimulate billions more in private sector investment as U.S. companies bring faster and cheaper internet to more Americans. And it will lay the foundation for countless technological innovations. These benefits will be felt nationwide and indeed worldwide across multiple generations of Americans. On day one of the new administration, the FCC under Chairman Carr hit the ground running and already has an impressive list of accomplishments to show. These include the delete, delete, delete docket, which continues to clear out the regulatory underbrush, ensuring the integrity of the universal service programs and preventing fraud by illegal aliens, reforming the FCC's satellite licensing regime to help bolster America's position as the global leader in space commerce, streamlining permitting to speed broadband build-out, and moving at lightning speed to implement the new spectrum pipeline, already teeing up 100 megahertz of valuable C-band spectrum to be auctioned for commercial use in the near future. But there is plenty more work to be done. Given the rapid pace of evolution in technology and telecommunications, it is a wonder that the legal regime governing these issues and the Commission's role in regulating them has largely not been updated since 1996. And there are any number of issues, from the utility of the so-called public interest standard in the modern era, to retransmission consent rules in the streaming era, to the current media ownership caps, where a statutory update might be worthwhile. The world of today, with mobile computers in every pocket and artificial intelligence becoming exponentially more capable, is markedly different from the time when cell phones were the size of footballs, when Gordon Gekko walked on the beach holding a brick to the side of his head, and from the time when AOL was the leading edge of internet connectivity. We live in a different world, and it is worth considering whether Congress should revisit the Communications Act and update it for the modern age. On the public interest standard in particular, if my colleagues across the aisle do what many expect and hammer the chairman over their newfound religion on the First Amendment and free speech, I will be obliged to point out that those concerns were miraculously absent when the Biden administration was pressuring big tech to silence Americans for wrongthink on COVID and election security. It will underscore a simple truth, that the public interest standard and its wretched offspring, like the news distortion rule, have outlived whatever utility they once had, and it is long past time for Congress to pass reforms. I'm grateful to our witnesses for being here today to talk about what the FCC is doing and how to address some of these important issues. The energy and focus Chairman Carr has brought to this commission in just the first year has been productive and refreshing. I'm excited for what the next several years will bring.
Especially low Earth orbit broadband, advances in artificial intelligence, and major disruptions across the media landscape. The committee also pointed to recent legislative action under President Trump's Working Families Tax Cut Act. The law restored the FCC's spectrum auction authority for the next decade and created the largest spectrum pipeline ever enacted, 800 megahertz. Lawmakers say the move is expected to raise billions for taxpayers, unlock even more private sector investment, expand access to faster and cheaper internet, and fuel long-term technological innovation across the country. Since the start of the new administration, FCC Chairman Carr has moved quickly, launching a series of reforms aimed at cutting unnecessary regulations, protecting the integrity of universal service programs, preventing fraud, and modernizing satellite licensing to strengthen America's leadership in space commerce. The FCC has also streamlined broadband permitting and begun fast-tracking the new spectrum pipeline, including plans to auction 100 megahertz of valuable C-band spectrum in the near future. Despite those efforts, lawmakers stressed that much more work remains. They noted that the legal framework governing communications policy has largely remained unchanged since 1996, an era before smartphones, social media, and artificial intelligence reshaped everyday life. Committee members raised questions about whether outdated rules, such as the public interest standard, retransmission consent policies, and media ownership caps, still make sense in today's digital and streaming-driven environment. Comparing the modern tech landscape to the early days of bulky cell phones and dial-up internet, lawmakers argued that Congress should seriously consider updating the Communications Act for the modern age. The hearing is expected to include sharp debate over free speech and First Amendment issues, with some members criticizing what they describe as inconsistent concerns raised by Democrats, particularly in light of past government pressure on tech companies over COVID and election-related content. Committee leaders concluded by thanking the FCC witnesses for appearing and praised Chairman Carr's early leadership, calling it energetic, productive, and refreshing. Lawmakers said they look forward to continued oversight and further reforms in the years ahead.